Good morning, everyone. Friday, February 6th, day 15 of New Jersey versus Paul Caneiro in Monmouth County, New Jersey, in the courtroom of Judge Marc C. Lemieux. We're going to head over there. They should be starting today. Short week. We had yesterday off. Wednesday, we ended after 2 medical examiners testified about the autopsies and the manner of death in the Caneiro family. Notably, there was no cross. We also finished up cross-examination of the ballistics expert, Sergeant First Class Clayton.
Paul Caneiro, it's indictment 19-020283. Can I have the appearances of counsel for the record?
Honor, Assistant Prosecutor Nicole, Wallace on behalf of the state.
Good morning, Judge Chris Decker, Assistant Monmouth County Prosecutor for the state.
Good morning, Your Honor. Monika Mastellone on behalf of Mr. Paul Caneiro, who's present.
Good morning, Judge Andy Marc, Mr. Caneiro.
All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Caneiro. I did not want to bring the jurors out yet because there was an issue. Can I have the attorneys up here for a second?
Issue first thing in the morning, starting with the sidebar, has not even brought the jury in yet. There's speculation today about whether or not the state will rest. Who else have they to bring up? We've heard from DNA experts, we've heard from fire experts, ballistics experts, and now we've heard from the medical examiners. Previously, we heard from digital forensics. We heard from almost every law enforcement officer or first responder that was on scene in both Colts Neck in Ocean Township and or both. We had extensive logging in of the evidence by Pritchett. We also had a lot of DNA experts because of the different types of testing that were done and the use of that specialized lab application from what StarMax. Paul Caneiro listening intently. I'd love to be a fly on the wall right now. This one really has me curious first thing in the morning. Maybe.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't mind, I have to deal with an issue, so I'm going to ask everyone to clear the courtroom for a minute.
Okay. They have to clear.
I will tell you all this, that I'm clearing the physical courtroom. I'm not turning off live stream. I believe next door is live stream. I believe it still is. I'm not sure. Do we know that? Anyone know?
Which one?
Right next door.
The 309 is no longer.
So it's not being on. But you can watch it on the New Jersey Judiciary. I just can't have you physically in the courtroom with what I need to do right now. So I don't want you to think that you can't watch it somewhere outside. You just can't watch it in here. Okay. And I'll bring you back in before we start. I'll take a break so that you guys can all come back in. I wouldn't do that to you.
Members of the Caneiro family. I saw Susan Caneiro there also. It's a little confusing in this New Jersey courtroom because everyone sits on one side based on how the jury comes in and out. It's yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm going to use my tele.
Sure. Yeah, just number 9. Put him right in his regular seat.
Okay, it looks like a jury issue that we're going to have to discuss. There might have been something that happened yesterday. Jury's coming in. You can hear their voices.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Good.
So, something came to my attention in reference to on Wednesday walking out from the courthouse at the end of the day, that there may have been some conversation that went on between yourself and a sheriff's officer. And I wanted to just hear it from you if there was any conversation. The way it was relayed to me is that it had to do something with the photographs that were observed on the screen. if you recall, do you recall having some form of a conversation with the sheriff's officer
Yes.
about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Could you tell me what the conversation was, please?
Let me think. Oh boy. Jeez. I probably made reference to the fact that that was something about the trauma of the photo.
Okay.
And I think I might have said something to him like, I guess this is nothing new for you guys. You probably see this once in a while. I think it was something to that effect. That's what I recall. I don't.
Okay, that's fine. So when you say the trauma of the photo, tell me what you meant by that when you said that.
The trauma that those folks might have probably experienced.
Okay.
And
so the trauma to them?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me how, when you saw the photos, if at all, how it impacted you.
Just sadness.
Okay. Now, we discussed, if you remember, one of the open-ended questions, we discussed this particular issue.
Right.
Because we foreshadowed that this would be something that would come up.
Right.
And it's my recollection that every one of the jurors had indicated that they would be able to put any emotion aside and be able to still decide this case based upon all the evidence and not based on the photos. I just want to make sure you are still comfortable that you saw what you saw, and that's fine. If you are in any way feeling any sort of way just by looking at those photos, I need for you to tell me now, because obviously it's important to both sides here.
No, I think that happened, and in that moment that happened, and then I was like, okay, just clear it out. I was like, okay, that's what it is, and just move on. I tend to do that. Things can impact me, and then I'll process it, and then just go back to square one, so it doesn't like linger.
Okay. So whatever that trauma was to the victims in this case, I need to know that your emotions that you had, even if you put them aside, that you would be able to still decide this case, because you have to decide not only that these individuals have died, and also that who the individual was who did this. So I need to make sure that you still have an open mind as to all of the evidence in this case. You're going to evaluate all of it and not just the fact that you're looking at those photos. So you're going to be able to do that?
I feel like I will. Yeah.
Okay. I want to get a little bit more from you if you don't mind.
Sure.
I don't know if it applied to you when we had those voir dire questions. Yeah, if you don't mind.
Folks, can you keep it down, please? Thank you.
I don't know if it applied to you or not, but sometimes when people would answer my questions when we were going through voir dire, if they gave me an answer that maybe it could mean something else, I would ask it again. And so I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I heard you, what you just said, but I just want to make sure. I need to know, and both parties need to know that the photos are not going to impact your overall analysis in this case. So can you say that with certainty that you can do that, or are you still feeling like, yeah, it's still bothering me?
No, I can say it with certainty. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, when it hits you, It's like, I mean, there's lots of things through life where if I don't hold it in that moment and then be able to move on, that I'm just captured into the past and I'm ready to move on.
Okay. All right. So you feel like you could still be fair and impartial both to the state and to the defense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So now let me ask you this. That conversation that you had with the officer, was there anybody else that was a part of that conversation?
No, he and I were on the back of the line. We were just together.
Okay. So there was nobody else there. And Can you tell us about that when you talked to him? Was it in a high voice? Was it a low voice? Meaning that soft?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you feel, based upon what you saw when you during that conversation, that any of the other jurors heard what you said?
No.
Okay.
I made sure I was far enough back because I didn't want to.
Okay. Let me now take it past the sheriff's officer for a second. Understanding how you felt on Wednesday night, were you able to continue with complying with the charge of not talking to people that night about it or talk to anybody else about it? You had to kind of keep it to yourself. Were you able to do that? If you weren't, I understand. But
I mentioned a couple of things to my wife about it was a heavy day.
okay.
That was about it.
You just said heavy day?
Heavy day, yeah.
Did you say anything more than that?
I said that they showed photos today and it was really impactful.
Okay.
And she wanted to know more. I said, but she goes, no, I know you can't talk about it.
Okay. Did she make any comments to you as a result of what you said?
No.
Okay. All right. Is there anything about the conversation that you had with your wife that you feel that could have impacted you and your ability to be fair and impartial?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Separate and apart from this conversation, is there anything else that has happened during the course of this trial? Any emotions that have come up that would affect your ability to be fair and impartial?
No.
Okay. Do you feel like you can sit on this jury and decide this case, continue on?
I do.
Okay. Any doubt in your mind?
No. I mean, even when Wednesday happened, I was still locked into like objectivity. It was so, yeah, I feel competent.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. This is between the four walls. So if you don't mind, we're going to keep this here. I'm not going to say anything to them, so please don't tell them either. And let me ask you this, just to round it out. Have you heard anyone else talking about the trial or anything else, or make any comments to you about those pictures or anything?
Folks in here?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Just, people are just, you got looks and we're like exchanging information just through our eyes. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, but no one said anything about it. Okay. All right, you can go back in the jury room. Thank you, sir. No, there's nothing to be sorry about, sir. Thank you, though. I appreciate your honesty. Anything anyone want to put on the record? I feel comfortable with what he said.
Same for the state judge.
Okay. Fence? For the record purposes, after listening to juror number 9, I found him to be very credible in his responses to me. I found that under the circumstances, the pictures, they showed what they showed. And we, as the attorneys and the court, we looked at question number 1 to the jurors and asked them specifically because we knew that these photos could have impact. This juror remained consistent with what his answers was back during voir dire. I don't have any concerns about him and his ability to be fair and impartial in this case. I do not find in any way, shape, or form that there's been any impact on any of the other jurors. I find that the sheriff's officer and the juror were back away from the rest of the jurors, that the other jurors didn't hear those 2 comments that were made. And based upon that, I'm going to allow juror number 9 to continue on with our case. And we'll see if he ends up being a part of our case or not. Nobody knows until the alternates are picked after the charge is given to the jury. With that being said, is there anything else we need to do before we go back and bring the jurors out?
No, but Judge, I just need to remind the court the state needs to rest.
No, I do. I remember that. Okay. But anything other than that?
No, sir.
Anything else from the defense before I bring them back out? Okay. I just don't want to bring them out and then us come right to sidebar in 2 seconds. So if there's something, let's just do it now. We're good? Okay. All right. We can bring them out. Thank you.
Really excited. Come on out.
Okay, well, looks like juror number 9 is not to be excluded.
You see, I've been out here for a while.
You beat us for once.
It would have been fun if you guys knocked on the door and said that you were ready. Next
I didn't know we were allowed.
You got it. All right, we're just going to allow everyone back in. Did anyone see we might get snow again this weekend?
Wednesday's snow day.
Isn't it enough? Didn't we get enough? We can't get rid of the old stuff.
I thought you were going to indict somebody, Mother Nature.
Yeah, well, listen, Mother Nature's not listening. It's kind of like the story of my life. Nobody listens to me. All right. Let's just give it one more second. I apologize. I should have done that before I asked you to come out. Okay, we're back on the record. I already put the caption on the record earlier. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to the state.
Thank you, Judge. Subject to the moving of evidence, the state rests.
Okay, state rests at this point in time. This point in time, we'll move over to the defense case. The defense can call their first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense would call Dr. Jeff Gould.
Morning, sir. Just watch your step as you're coming up. If you don't mind, sir, if you could put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand for me. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and once you can get seated, get comfortable. Can you state your full name for the record and spell your last name, please?
Jack Gould, last name Gould.
Sir, I'm just going to ask for you to do me a favor, okay? When you speak, when you're testifying, please make sure you keep your voice up. Jurors number 15 and 16, they got to be able to hear everything that you're saying. So just keep your voice up, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, when you're ready, Ms. Mastellone.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Gould. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Stand up.
Oh, no, you can remain seated.
My name is Jack Gould. I'm a local physician in Monmouth County.
And what is your educational background?
I did my undergraduate work as a microbiologist at Rutgers College. From there, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry and then went off to medical school at the University of Medicine and Dentistry. And then I did my residency in obstetrics and gynecology at Monmouth Medical Center.
And do you currently live in Monmouth County?
Yes.
Who do you live with?
I currently live with my wife, Pam Gould.
Okay, so I want to first talk to you about how you know the Caneiro family. Do you know Paul Caneiro and his family?
Yes.
And who is in Paul's immediate family?
Wife Susan and two daughters, Marissa and Katie.
And how do you know them?
They were my neighbors for 23 to 25 years.
Okay, and when did it start? When did you first meet them? What year?
Met in the spring of '96, and they moved in approximately 6 months after we moved in.
Okay, and when you say neighbors, where was your house physically located in comparison to Mr. Caneiro's?
They were directly, our back sides of both our houses, we were directly behind their house.
And what was your address at the time?
19 Oxford Drive.
That address may sound familiar, so let me just ask you this. Were you involved in this investigation at all?
Only in the fact that I had been requested to offer video surveillance for my cameras.
And did you ultimately provide the surveillance to the detectives when I asked?
Yes.
And we've seen that. Were you involved in this investigation in any other way?
No.
And was there anything with respect to the investigation that you would have added?
Yeah, it was kind of odd because when all this was going on, this would be on the 20th, I was actually in my office watching, because I had cameras watching what was going on, and they were going from one backyard to the other backyard, back and forth. And I realized they were talking to my wife. And when they pointed at the cameras, I kind of realized I'd be getting a visitor at my office. They showed up, they asked for the video information, but they never actually even asked if I had known Paul. They never asked any questions about it. And our backyards were kind of odd because we had a little walkway with pergolas and kind of grapevines, and they were putting up crime scene tape, but they never asked what was with the connection between the 2 yards, which was kind of odd.
Was it like a custom?
Yeah, it was custom pergolas, and kind of made it look nice so that families could go back and forth easily.
Okay. So let's talk about that information that, I want to talk about the information that you have about the Caneiro family. But since you mentioned the surveillance cameras, I just want to talk about that briefly. Who installed your cameras, your surveillance system?
I did the actual installation of the cameras, and I did the hardwiring of all the coaxial cables to the main DVR that I had set up. Unfortunately, once I had it all set up, I couldn't get it to stream through the router, the modem. I just couldn't get it to actually work. So I contacted Paul and had him come over to do all the internet protocols or whatever needed so that I could stream it through the firewall.
Okay, so was there like was there any type of system that he put in place for you?
Along the way, he had set up for internet security. He did a external hard, I guess it would be a router firewall that I used Square One to manage, just so I didn't have to worry about anyone hacking into my system. Unfortunately, I didn't understand how it worked. He did, so I would always have him take care of any problems that occurred. And one of them was trying to get the video cameras to work.
Was there something with like an acronym that he used?
He set up it's a DDNS, and I know it has to do with changing IP addresses, but I don't understand it. He did.
Okay, so you mentioned you don't understand it. Is this something that's is it simple or is it more complex?
To me, it was complex.
Okay, and did Mr. Paul Caneiro ever set up any access points in your house anywhere?
He set up an access point over our garage because it was too far away from the antennas for our router. And this way my wife had her office up there, and it allowed us to have better internet access at that end of the house.
And so returning to the Caneiro family.
Yes.
I want to focus on that. When you mentioned you first met the Caneiro family in 1996, how soon after they moved into their home at 27 Tilton did you meet them?
I actually saw the day they moved in, and I probably met Paul the next day or within 2 days. He was in his backyard, so I went in my backyard just to kind of chit chat with him. And
how did that conversation go?
It actually went very well. I'm a firm believer after about 5 to 10 minutes of talking to somebody, you can get a good flavor if this is somebody you can continue a conversation with. And I could. It was very comfortable. We had very similar likes and a very similar personality. Sense of humor actually matched very well.
And did you see anyone help the Caneiro family that day move in when you saw them?
When I actually saw Paul was coming in with had his brother Keith with him, and Keith was carrying some stuff in with him.
Okay. Now, over time, can you explain to us how your relationship developed with the Caneiro family? And I'm referencing Paul, Susan, and their daughters at this point.
It turned out that Paul had 2 daughters, and I had a daughter and a son, and they were both, all 4 of them were within a year of each other. So there was Marissa, my daughter, and then Katie and my son. So they were all pretty much in the same age bracket. They were going to be going to the same school system. And they started, because the backyards were next to each other, were playing with each other constantly. And then because of that, my wife and Susan were around. They would actually start supervising the children. And then on the weekends, when Paul was around, we'd all get together. The children would play, and it was almost like a common backyard. They would run back and forth from house to house, and we would kind of just sit on a deck and just watch them play. And as time went on, you get friendlier and friendlier, and you get to know each other a lot better.
So over the years, how often would you say you saw the Caneiro family?
In the summertime, especially when the children were off in the warmer weather, it would probably be almost every weekend or every other weekend. Somebody would either have a barbecue, even if it was just throwing hamburgers and hot dogs on the grill, because the kids were out playing. It was better to be outside than inside. So every week to 2 weeks.
And so would you consider yourself and your family close to Paul and his family?
It got to the point where it would be like considered extended family.
And did your families ever become close to the extent that you would celebrate holidays together?
Yeah, we got in the habit very early on. All Christmases would be celebrated at Paul's house, mainly because I'd be on call a lot for Christmas, so I may or may not be there. So we did the Christmases over at Paul's house, then New Year's, we would alternate one house to the other. He would host it or I would host it. And on these events, you could invite anybody or any family members, anybody. And then as it got warmer weather, Labor Day, Memorial Day, we would have outdoor barbecues, and either he would host one or we would.
Now, who else would typically be at these barbecues or the holiday events?
A lot of times we would be there, Keith would be there with Jen. And early on, it was just Keith and Jen, but as time went on, they had children. So then Jesse and Sophia would be there. Sometimes if Katie or Marissa had friends, they would come over. My children would also be over there. And if they had friends, they would come over. Occasionally, the parents, I know Paul's parents would be there from time to time.
And do you know Jim and Stacy Pritchett,
Yes.
Would they be there as
They
well?
would be there also.
Did you ever see Corey at any of
Yes.
these gatherings?
Corey was there, but not as often as everybody else. So I would say he was there maybe 10 to 15% of the time. He wasn't there all the time, but he would be there occasionally.
And who is Elisa?
Elisa was Corey's girlfriend, which led up to, I think they got married at some point in time, but I don't know when.
And how often did you see her?
If I saw her once or twice in the 23 years, that's about it.
Now, in addition to holidays, you mentioned, I think, barbecues and other types of like Labor Day, Memorial Day events. Did you ever socialize with the Caneiro family in any other capacity?
Yeah, especially because the kids really got along great. We got along great. We did go on a couple of vacations to the Outer Banks in North Carolina, and we also went to Turks and Caicos, both families together.
Okay. Now, based on how well you knew Paul, how would you describe Paul?
Very well educated, very well read, easygoing, someone you could have a conversation on almost any topic, and you could have an ongoing conversation, calm enough that you could make jokes and not worry that you offended him. He kind of rolled with the punches and had a very pleasant personality, never got angry, never got upset. And, you know, he was good with the kids. It's an enjoyable experience. It's good.
Would you describe Paul as a helpful person?
Most definitely. He was very good with his hands, and he had a pool. At one point in time, he put a pool and we had a pool. So if I ever had pump problems with my pool, he would come over and essentially show me how to adjust, my pool. If I had any electrical issues, he would come over. And if I had troubles with IT stuff, he would actually run the wires and then, call actually to the company and switch things over just so that instead of using coaxial cable, we would use Cat5. And if I had problems outside with drainage, he would come over and talk to me about how the best way to run drainage things.
And I think you mentioned that when you were describing Paul, he like more of a calm personality. Can you explain that more?
When you have young kids running around doing what young kids do, he never raised his voice. I never had an argument with him. We never argued about anything. Never heard him argue with anybody. He's just a very calm individual. I don't have a better way to say it, but
And now you mentioned that you also had the occasion to meet Keith and Jennifer, it sounds like many times?
Many times. We never went on vacations with them, but they were always over at Paul's house. So we did socialize with them frequently.
And based on your observations and your experience with the Caneiro family, including Paul, Susan, their daughters, and Keith, Jennifer, and their daughters, how would you describe the relationship between Paul and Keith?
Exceptionally close. I mean, some people would even say they were like fused at the hips. They could talk about many different things, always joking, laughing, in a very close, caring relationship. You could feel that they cared for each other. And even if they were partners in a business, and even if they were talking about a client, it was a quick conversation, and then they moved on to something else.
And how would you describe, like, Paul, the way that Paul would speak about Keith? Or
Protective. And I remember, if Keith ever had a problem with something going on at his house, Paul, and this happened once we were out at lunch. If something was going on at Keith's house, Paul would say, oh, as soon as we're done, we have to drive over to the house. He's got to set up something that was a pool timer that needed to be adjusted. Paul would drop what he was doing and go over.
So was it your impression that Paul would, you mentioned earlier he was helpful. Does that include being helpful to Keith when he could?
Yes.
What about when Keith went back to school?
When Keith went back to school, I guess he went to Columbia, and I'm not sure if it was for a master's or a PhD. Paul was very supportive. Paul was actually very proud of it. And it wasn't uncommon that Keith would contact Paul about, I guess, classes, things to do, if there was a project, just for advice. So Paul was very supportive of it.
And so I want to focus a little bit more now on the year of 2018. Was the summer of 2018 any different than any prior summer as far as the get-togethers and the being with family?
The summer of 2018, there were less get-togethers. I think between Paul and Susan, there may have been a marital issue or something. So I was working a lot, and I guess we didn't really have as much where we would go out to dinner as much. But Paul still, on the weekends, would still have barbecues. So we would still get together in that respect.
So would you still spend time with Paul and Susan and the girls as a family?
Yeah.
Okay. And to your knowledge, you mentioned the marital issue. Did Paul and Susan still get along?
Yeah.
Did you ever hear Paul say anything bad about Susan?
Sustained. Don't answer that question. It's hearsay.
Did they ever express any type of,
Objection.
Sustained. Express. You're asking for what he has heard from others, so it's sustained. Hearsay.
Can we approach?
Sure.
Okay, valid objection. I mean, well, I'm just going to have to say, come on, Miss Mastellone, you know the hearsay rule. You cannot ask him what other people said or thought. And now she wants to go to the bench. She's just going to have to find a way to formulate the question to get the answer she wants without having him talk about what anyone else said or did.
During the time that you knew Paul and Susan living at 27 Tilton, was there a point in time where there were renovations to their home?
Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about that?
There was a few renovations. The first one that I remember was they were doing work on their bathroom, which was putting in closets and redoing it. So they renovated that. And then as time went on, LED lights became the fashion, and you could adjust the brightness. So he had an electrician guy, And they were changing all the lights to LEDs with special switches so that he could adjust light paths. So if one of the daughters came home in the middle of the night, they could just press a button and there'd be a light path. So they didn't have to turn on and off lights the whole way. So he was switching all that over. He also had another guy the guy that did our pergolas, was taking down sheetrock and doing insulation indoors for sound, sound silencing insulation, soundproofing, I guess is the best way to say it. So he had a lot of rooms soundproofed.
What about anything with woodworking?
Yeah, they did a lot of custom cabinetries. So I know in the bedroom, when you do an entertainment system, he had custom entertainment systems built. And that was the same guy that did, I think, the pergolas.
And I want to draw your attention to November 19th of 2018. Do you remember that day?
Yes,
Was there anything special about that day?
my wife's birthday.
And did you go out that night for her birthday?
Yes.
Okay. And after that, what's the next thing that you remember?
We went out for, dinner and drinks. It was a nice evening. You go to bed. And then somewhere around between 5 and 5:30, maybe 5:20, we got a phone call from Katie Caneiro, Paul's daughter, that their house was on fire. She didn't know much details, that in case the fire had spread, because we had a big oak tree between the yards, grab our dog, grab your valuables, get dressed and get out of the house. So we did. And then we left our house and we were at the top of our driveway, which saw the back of their house and saw the house on fire.
Okay. Did you see them at all that morning?
No.
And when was the next time you saw anyone from the Caneiro family?
Later that evening, it may have been, Susan came to our house because she was going to be staying with our house.
And obviously a lot of time has passed since 2018.
Yes.
Are you still close with the Caneiro family?
Yes, very much so.
Thank you.
Ross?
Dr. Gould, good morning. How you doing? Just wanted to ask you a couple of questions. You mentioned Columbia. Were you talking about the university or the country?
No, the university.
Oh, the university. Because that's where Keith went back to school, correct?
Yes,
He got his MBA, I think, right?
I think so, yes.
Okay, so when you first met Keith and Jen, they didn't yet have kids, right?
No.
Okay, and eventually they did have kids, correct?
Yes.
Sophia and Jesse, right?
Mhm.
So you knew Sophia, you knew Jesse?
Yes.
Okay. And were they at your house at times?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you understand with respect to, I guess you had interactions with where it would be you, it would be Keith, and it would be Paul all together, correct?
Yes.
And you described their relationship as being extremely close. They were, you said, maybe joined at the hip or something like that.
That's a nice way to describe it, yes.
Now, Corey was a bunch younger than Keith and Paul, right?
7 years, I think,
Yeah, 7 or 8, right?
in that ballpark, yes.
Because Keith and Paul are like 1 year apart, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So there was a significant age gap there, right?
Yes.
And Corey wasn't even married yet, right? When you first met him, you said?
When we first met him, no.
Now, you talked about electrical issues or electrical work that was being done and how Paul would go over to Keith's house and he was helping him out with some of these electrical issues and things like that, right?
I don't know if it was
Objection, that's
specifically
not what
electrical issues.
He said it was a pool issue.
He did say something about electrical, so I'm gonna.
That was Paul's renovations.
Your objection is overruled. Whatever you remember is what you said is what matters to us. What was it about electrical that you recall that Paul would do? That's all we want to know.
Paul's house, he had some guy coming in, changing all the light bulbs to LEDs and all the light switches so that they could be operated through an app on his phone.
Paul was obviously very tech savvy, correct?
Most definitely.
Probably more than you, right?
Most definitely.
I'm sure more than me.
Objection.
Sustained.
He was more tech savvy than most people you knew. Is that accurate?
Right.
And when you had issues with your cameras, he was able to come over and try to figure it out, right?
Either would come over, or if I had computer issues, we actually had overlapping wireless networks. Sometimes he would just fix it from his patio.
Remotely?
Yeah.
Okay. And you said he would go over to Paul, you did say he would go over to Keith's house sometimes and help out with stuff though, right?
Yes.
Okay, what kind of stuff?
The one example I can tell you, just because I remember I was with Paul, we were out at a restaurant having lunch, and he goes, I got to go over to Keith's house and adjust, I think it was either a light or a setting to the pool. And he goes, do you want to come on over with me? And I said, yeah, I'd love to see the house and get a tour.
So you've been to Keith's house, correct?
Yes.
And you've been to Paul's house, I imagine, many times, right?
Many times.
And when was the last time you think you were there prior to the fire?
At Paul's house.
Yes.
Probably September. Well, the fire was September, October, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't remember the exact day.
Okay, I understand. You were in the basement during the course of your times at 27 Tilden?
Yes.
Okay. And were you in the basement, like, close in time to November 20th of 2018 when the fire happened?
Probably the last time I was down in the basement would have been in the summer, maybe, but not close to the fire.
Describe the basement for us.
You would go down the steps. To the right was a area, I guess, where the kids would be playing in. They had a play area. If you went over more to the right, there was an enclosed area which he had kind of an entertainment area with a TV and music. If you went down the steps and you turned to the left, you went through doors, and that's where he had, I guess the best way to say it would be like a hobby doing gunsmithing, so he kept gunsmithing equipment down there.
Okay.
And then if you went further down, there was another area where he had some water purification systems and storage cabinets.
You said gunsmithing. What do you mean?
He owned firearms, and sometimes if they needed to be worked on or looked at, he would actually clean them, repair them, take them apart.
Did you ever shoot firearms with Mr. Caneiro?
Yes.
Okay, where'd you do that?
At that time, I think Paul had 2 memberships.
Okay.
And they were more outdoor ranges, and I had a membership in Lakewood at an indoor range.
At Sure Shot?
Yes.
Okay, did he have a membership at Sure Shot?
I don't remember if he had a membership because you could bring guests, so I'm not really sure.
Those outdoor ranges, there's an outdoor range like almost like across the street from Tilden Drive, right?
Yeah.
Gun Club Road, right?
Mhm.
So that's nearby, right?
Yes.
Did you ever go there with Mr. Caneiro?
No, I had been there for a safety course, but I did not go with Paul.
Now, can I have the back table for a moment? Dr. Gould, I just wanted to show you a couple photos, just for context, if you don't mind. Let me show you S1A, slide 3. And I'm just going to ask you if you recognize what that shows. And you recognize that area?
Yes.
And what's that?
That's the front of Paul's house.
Okay, and what's in the back here?
Right here?
Yeah.
My house.
That's your house. I just want to make sure. Can I have S1A slide 3? It's going to be on the screen in front. Okay, so Doctor, you just pointed it out here, but could you just explain what we're looking at here? And you can use that pen if you'd like.
Right. This is the front of Paul's house, and this is the back end of my house. The northern side would be over here.
I don't know why that thing is not more.
That's okay.
It usually does. Our screen is. So what we're going to do is we're just going to look up here. The house that's kind of in the majority of the photo is 27 Tilden, correct?
Yes.
And then just like kind of over top the garage with the 3 windows on the left, that's your house in the back, right?
Yes.
Okay. And just, if I could, I'm going to show you slide 6 of S1A. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what's that show?
That is actually the northern side of Paul's house where the garage doors are.
Okay. So north is up to the left, right?
Yes.
Your house would be east, right? Okay. Can I have slide 6, please? Okay. So when we're looking at that photo, if you could just kind of just explain now that the jury can see it.
Okay. This is the back where Paul's garage is. My house would be back here. Way up here was where my wife's office was, and this is the other part of our house.
Okay. All right.
It's not working at all.
It's not, Judge.
I'm
I'm sorry.
talking to Dave now.
These are Mr. Caneiro.
Technology.
Sorry. Dr. Gould, those are Mr. Caneiro's cars in the driveway, right?
They're his cars, daughter's cars.
Oh.
But they're owned by.
They belong at that residence?
Yes.
Okay. And your cameras are on the back, you have cameras, you had a bunch of cameras on your
Yes,
house, right?
yes, I did.
But there was 2 on the back, right?
There was a camera that was here. I'm trying to think, this was the main camera. I did have another camera, but it was inside the house facing outward. And there was a camera on the other side of the house. When I was installing the cameras, I had asked Paul's advice, and every main entry point had a camera on it.
Okay, I'm going to stop us for a second. Can you guys just go in the jury room for a second? Don't discuss the case, don't do any research. I want to fix this issue so that I want to make sure that we can get this captured. Doctor, you can take a seat.
Okay.
Our
Short
IT
break to deal with a tech issue there that they want to make sure. I think it's a bold move of the defense to start with character witnesses. I guess they're trying to revamp the jury, like reset them, so to speak. I would have started right away contesting the evidence that they heard with experts. But perhaps they're just trying to let that be a little more distant right now and try to talk about character with Paul and set the scene for a different look, a different aspect besides just the evidence piling up on him. It's strategy.
I could have fixed it myself, but I didn't want to show off.
Would you turn it off, turn it back on again?
All right, we're good to go now. Mr. Tucker, I'm going to ask for you to step back. Yeah, and I'd like for you to step back to the picture before, because there was conversation about that we did not capture, so that the record is clear. I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir, Judge, of course. Can I go back to slide 3, please? Doctor, we're going to go back to that first slide, number 3, which is on the screen now in front of you, correct?
Yes.
Could you just put an X on like the 27 Tilton residence? There you go. And then when we talked about your house, can you put like a Y over top or something? Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, so we'll mark that is slide 3. I don't know what point we're on with that one. It's because a couple other people. Do you know, Anna?
I don't know. There's a delay, Mike.
Oh, that's okay. So I just want to confirm that it's 3 point something. I don't have my latest for that slide.
Your Honor, it's 2.
3.2? Thank you. All right, so 3.2. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No problem. Can we go back to slide 6 now, please? So we're looking at S1A, slide 6. And again, you referenced where your house was. Can you put a Y over there again? Thank you, Doctor. And then this is the garage, I think, of 27 Tilton, right?
Yes.
You put like a G there or something. Great, thank you. And then you said that the 2 white cars, they belonged there, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you didn't know which one was specifically whose, but they both belonged at the residence?
Yes.
And you referenced one of the cameras from the back of your house that was like on the back of your house, correct?
Correct.
Could you put like a little circle? Like I know you may not be able to see it.
A camera right here.
Okay.
And there was a window here, and on the inside, there was a camera that faced directly out.
Okay.
But
yes. You want to go a little above it with an arrow, maybe it'll actually mark better.
Perfect.
Thank you, Doc. And with respect to that camera footage, you testified that you ultimately gave it to the police, right?
yes,
All the cameras from your home.
whatever they asked for.
Okay. And ultimately, they took it and they ultimately looked at it. You imagine, right?
Yes.
Did you look at any of the footage prior to turning it over to the police?
No.
How about afterwards?
Yes, but it wasn't until a few weeks afterwards, just because being on call, and I just never really wanted to look at it. We did check it a few weeks later.
Sorry. Can we just save that 6.3?
When you looked at it, did you see a car leave at 2:08 in the morning from that 27 Tilton driveway?
When they originally asked for the video footage, I gave them the original, but then they asked for another set. So I saw a car coming back on the first set, and it wasn't until maybe weeks later that I saw the second, what they requested for, and that's when I saw a car leaving.
So you saw a car leaving the driveway at 27th Tilden in the middle of the night,
Yes.
early morning hours?
Yes,
It's about 2:08.
it would be time stamped on the,
Then did you see the car come back about 2 hours later?
yes.
Did you see when the fire first became visible on the back of 27th Tilden?
Not when it, on the camera or in reality?
On the camera.
Yes,
Now, you weren't up when the fire started, right? Okay. You weren't up when the time when the car left 27 Tilden?
No.
You weren't up when the car came back to 27 Tilden, correct?
correct.
And obviously, you talked about the relationship between Paul and Keith Caneiro, right?
Yes,
They were close, correct?
yes,
They were a year apart. They were brothers, right?
yes,
But obviously, I mean, you'd acknowledge, Doctor, that you weren't privy to all their conversations, right?
correct,
Okay, and you weren't privy to all their, personal conversations, right?
correct,
As well as you weren't privy to all the inner workings of the two of them as they related to like owning businesses together, correct?
correct,
And you obviously mentioned Square One, right? Yeah,
Right.
sorry, you just gotta say it. And EcoStar, right?
yes.
And did you know the dynamics of like who owned how much of what?
No,
Okay, Paul never told you the dynamics of the majority versus the minority of, say, Square One?
we were good friends and I didn't really want to pry into his business affairs.
Okay, so you didn't pry into his business affairs?
No.
Okay, so you didn't talk about any loans he took or anything like that?
He indicated he doesn't know.
I don't know what the loan is for, if it's personal or if it's, if you know.
I didn't ask any questions or knew anything about loans.
So you weren't aware in November of 2018, anything about,
Objection.
He hasn't finished his sentence yet. What's the objection?
Can we approach Judge?
Sure, of course.
Okay, I just have to say, I was muted because I was actually giggling at the objection. I think it's a valid objection and she should object. I just find it very ironic because Christopher Decker is just going in and showing what this witness actually doesn't know about Paul Caneiro. If you're going to bring a character witness out to all the things you do know, and he's so great and he does this, and then, Decker is a beast on cross. I've seen him do this in other trials. He will actually prove what you don't know. And just with that overwhelming stuff that you do not know that might be relevant to the case, just undermine a witness completely. But Monika's Mastellone actually
Doctor,
objecting.
just a couple more questions.
Wow.
What I was asking is it fair to say that back in November of 2018, you weren't aware of anything regarding Mr. Caneiro's financial status?
The only thing I did know about was he had a disability policy, because I had one also, and they were very similar disability policies. That's the only thing I knew about.
Okay. You weren't aware of any phone calls the night before November 19th between Keith and Paul?
No, not at all.
I just wanted to, because you mentioned you knew Keith Caneiro, Jennifer, Sophia, and Jesse, correct?
Yes.
I just want to show you what's been marked as S2 for identification.
Yes.
Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is that?
That's a picture of Keith, Jennifer, Jesse, and Sophia.
Can I have that published, please? Doctor, just now that it's in front of the jury, can you just tell us what that picture shows and who that is?
Keith, Jennifer, Sophia, and Jesse.
Keith, describe his hair for me.
As far as,
Okay. He kind of had a shaved head, right?
yes,
Okay. And Paul has hair, correct?
yes,
And he's had hair as long as you knew him, right?
yes.
And Corey had a shaved head like that, right? Like Keith?
Pretty much the whole time I knew him, yes.
Yeah. Judge, can we just approach for 2 seconds?
Sure. Can we turn the lights back on, please?
Monika Mastellone clearly annoyed. Well, Christopher Decker's style does undermine witnesses quite quickly into where their knowledge actually is, reminding the jury what they're there for. This was a risk because, well, there's cross-exam. Well, she was careful what she asked. She wants to make sure that all that business affairs and loans and financial stuff doesn't come in. But it's fair game to ask. It just had to be worded in the right way. So he reworded it, Christopher Decker did, and he got it in anyway. Say all the nice things you want about Paul Caneiro, but you knew nothing about what was going on in his private life. You knew nothing that was going on in his financial life. Monika Mastellone will definitely be appealing to the judge to make sure everything stays in scope, for sure. It's been a constant pushback of theirs since she came on in February, as we did all the pretrial hearings. It seems that the trial is well ahead of schedule. Judge Lemieux originally said March 20th. If we're on the defense already and they only asked for 2 weeks, that means that, well, by the end of the month, even with a rebuttal from the state, we should be at jury and even verdict before we're out. Well, fingers crossed anyway. I mean, it's only February 6th. Wrapping up.
I'm sorry.
I just want to show you what's been marked as S501. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Okay, who's in that picture?
Raise this up. Paul with his daughter, Kate.
Okay.
And either Minky or Kaya.
One of the dogs. Did you know the dogs?
Yes.
They bark.
Not much.
Okay. Now, does that, and I'm asking you whether you know because you know them. Does that appear to be a picture from the time frame that we're discussing, November of 2018 or somewhere in that time frame?
I couldn't tell you because it may have been before that.
Okay.
It may have been before that.
Okay. Do you recall whether or not that's what Mr. Caneiro looked like back in 2018, 2017?
I got to be honest, I don't have the memory to go back that far to know how he dressed at that point. But I do know that's him, that's his daughter. I'll say based on the daughter's age, she was probably in her early 20s.
Okay, that's their deck, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
And the pergola would be back there.
Oh, so you can see the pergola.
Pergola in the gate back there.
Great, thank you. Doctor, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Any redirect? Okay.
Doctor, you mentioned obviously Sophia and Jesse as well just now, and I think the prosecutor talked to you a little bit about them. What was Paul's relationship with Jesse and Sophia?
Very good. Fabulous. You know, by the time Jesse and Sophia were coming around, especially when they were, 8, 12 in that ballpark, his children had already been in their 20s. They were older. So it was kind of like having his kids again. So he especially loved Jesse because he had 2 daughters, and he he could do things with Jesse that he may not have done with his daughters, but he loved them very much. And again, whenever we had gatherings together, even between both our houses, those 2 kids essentially had free reign, and it would not be uncommon for Jesse or Sophia to run into our backyard, go into our house, where our kids' playroom was, and play with toys, and they would just go back and forth. So it was a very good relation, and he kind of spoiled them on the holidays. It's life.
And The prosecutor asked you a little bit about whether you had gone to the shooting range with Mr. Caneiro, and I think you mentioned that you went to a different shooting range at some point without Mr. Caneiro to take the gun safety course. Do you
Yes.
remember that?
That was many years ago, and it was down in, I guess, Ocean Township. It was Gun Club Road. It's mainly for skeet shooting.
So just to clarify, did you have your own gun collection?
Yes.
And like how old were you approximately when you started owning guns?
I started at age 18.
So the fact that you owned guns and Paul owned guns, was that part of your, like just one aspect of your friendship?
It was one aspect of the friendship that we could talk about and communicate.
And lastly, the prosecutor asked you some questions about your surveillance system and things of that nature. Yes. Did you ever employ or use the services of Square One to assist with any type of IT work?
Yes, when we had our first practice, everything was on paper, and that was being a thing of the past. So we were going to electronic medical records. So the whole office had to be set up for computers, both wired and wireless. We also needed a server. So we contacted Square One, went through Paul, and they came over and wired the whole office. They set up access points for wireless, and they put in workstations for the receptionists, the nurses, people that would do the billing, and they put a server in. And then as part of that, now that it's a medical practice, it needed to be secured. So I had mentioned to him about HIPAA regulations. We had to make sure that nobody could hack in for information. So he also set up an external firewall. And again, not my technical knowledge, but whatever was needed in case there was a breach, we could refer to Square One for their expertise and our protection. And as part of that, we put a rider on because I would log in from my house to the office. Therefore, my house needed to be protected also.
Gotcha. And so just to, notwithstanding that one aspect of using their services to assist an IT issue with your business and your home, other than that, to clarify, your relationship with Paul and Susan and his family, as well as with Keith and Jennifer and their family, was it more personal or was it business?
More personal.
Thank you.
Any recross?
Just, Doctor, obviously, Mr. Caneiro was very tech savvy, correct?
Correct.
He was able to do all that for your office, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
Yes.
access points, correct?
Yes.
Able to enable it so you could remotely access your home from your office and your office from your home.
Yes.
Thank you. You can step down, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
How's your step? How's everybody doing? Okay. All right. We'll call the defense can call our next witness.
Ms. Pam Gould.
Ms. Pam Gould. Okay, ma'am, come on up. Just watch your step, please. If you could do me a favor, could you put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, get yourself seated and comfortable. And once you are, can you state your full name for the record and spell your last name, please?
Pamela Gould, Gould.
Ma'am, I'm just going to ask you to do me one favor. During the course of your testimony, please keep your voice up. Jurors number 15 and 16 in the back corner over there, they need to hear you.
Okay.
Okay? All right, thank you. Ms. Mastellone, go ahead.
Good morning. Ms. Gould, can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Good morning. My name is Pam Gould. Officially Pamela, but I use Pam.
And what is your current occupation?
I am retired.
And what's your educational background?
I graduated from Montclair State College in December of 1984 with a bachelor's in business administration.
And are you married to Dr. Jack Gould, who we just heard from?
Yes.
Okay. So obviously we just heard from your husband, so we already have, background. We know that you and your husband were neighbors with the Caneiros for many years. So I just want to focus on the nature of your relationship with them.
Okay.
Generally, can you describe your relationship with Paul and his family and how it developed over time?
We were very, very close for 25 years or so when we were back neighbors. They moved in about 6 months after we did. Our children are all about a year staggered apart. So the kids became fast friends and we became fast friends. Over the years, we became closer and closer, really extended family.
And what kind of things did your family and the Caneiro family do together?
A lot of hanging out in our backyards, but we also vacationed together, dinners out, dinners in, movies. We went to a couple Broadway shows, traveled a couple times together as families, lots of barbecues in our backyards.
So did you consider yourself and your family close to the Caneiro family?
Extremely.
And did you consider them like family?
Absolutely. Extended family for sure.
And in the Caneiro family, who were you? How often would you see the Caneiros?
Susan and I spent much more time together than with the kids when they were younger, but Susan and I would spend maybe 2-3 days a week together, sometimes more. In the summer, we would just be out in the yard with the kids, but on average, probably 2 to 3 times a week.
Were there times when you would see her more than that?
Yeah, for sure. In the summers, we would basically see almost daily. If the weather was good, we'd be outside with kids playing. They had a pool, we had a pool. We would go back and forth between the 2 yards.
And since you were close with Susan and Nicole and their family, and spent a lot of time together, including the summer barbecues and things of that nature, did you also have the occasion to spend time with Keith and Jennifer Caneiro and their family?
Yes.
And can you explain how you came to know them?
Well, they were always present for Christmas Eve, was always at the Caneiro house. So Keith and Jen were always there with some other people on and off, whoever it was that year, but they were there every year for Christmas Eve. And then when we would just be in the yard, if it was a barbecue or one of the kids' birthdays or a 4th of July weekend holiday, they would come over and spend the day in the yard with the Caneiro family and my family.
And so based on how well you knew the Caneiro family, how would you describe Paul?
Paul is very intelligent, very well read, sometimes opinionated, but a very kind, giving soul.
And would you consider him like a helpful person?
Extremely helpful. He would offer up advice and physical help whenever there was a problem with our pool or our internet, which I'm sure my husband spoke about,
Yes.
that kind of stuff.
You mentioned, what was his demeanor like? What was his demeanor like?
He was very jovial and even-tempered.
Even-tempered?
Even-tempered, yes. Never saw him lose his temper, yell, scream, nothing like that.
And based on how well you knew Paul and Keith and the interactions, like the frequency you would see them and your interactions with them, I want to ask you about the nature of their relationship. How would you describe Keith and Paul's relationship?
Very close. Very close.
And can you explain more about that?
Paul was very protective of Keith, took care of Keith, that I saw personally, but we also heard stories of when they were growing up.
So I don't want to elicit any hearsay, nothing that anyone else said.
Okay.
Just based on your personal knowledge and what you know and what you've observed and what you've seen, is there anything else that you can tell us about just, either the the bond between Keith and Paul, or how close they were, things of that nature?
They were very close. They spent a lot of time together, obviously working together, but also outside of work, they spent a lot of time together.
And what about when Keith went back to school?
Paul was 100% supportive.
And do you have any knowledge of how Paul and Keith might typically handle disagreements with each other?
I believe they talked them out, never saw anything physical. Sometimes it would get a little contentious or tense, but it was always hashed out, and then they would pick up where they left off, go get something for lunch or dinner, and have a laugh.
And I also want to ask you about Paul and his relationship with Jesse and Sophia. How would you describe that?
Paul loved those kids like his own, especially had a very close bond with Jesse.
And when you say a close bond with Jesse, are you aware of any specific things that they would do together?
I know they did lunch dates from time to time, and you could just see the bond when they were together. They would just connect.
And are you aware of any renovations that Paul and Susan had to their house?
Yes.
And what was the approximate time frame of the renovations?
It was over the course of a couple of years. I don't remember what years those were, but it was over the course of a few years.
Was it like closer to, just approximate, was it like after 2015 or around that time, or
Probably around 2015.
around then?
I think so.
And you said over the course of a few years?
A couple of years, yeah.
And can you tell us what, based on your knowledge, like what do you know about the renovations?
It was a full house reno, done room by room. Bathrooms, kitchen, new floors, sheetrock, moldings, everything was replaced and updated.
And how did Paul, like when he would talk about the renovations, how did he express himself? Without saying what he said, but what was your general impression?
Oh, he was very excited. He was very involved he did a lot of research on all the products, and he was very excited about updating everything and like to talk about it a lot.
And was there anything,
Sorry.
are you aware of a backpack that Paul typically had?
I know he had a backpack, yes.
Okay, and do you know where he kept it, or where?
I believe it stayed in the car most of the time.
And I want to draw your attention to November 19th of 2018. Do you remember that?
I do.
And what, if anything, was special about that day?
That was my birthday.
And did you do anything that day to celebrate it with anyone in the Caneiro family?
Susan came over in the afternoon and we had a cup of tea.
And do you know around what time that was?
Probably around 2:30 or so till about 4:30.
And to your knowledge, where was Paul at that time?
He was sleeping.
And do you know, to your knowledge, do you know why?
Objection.
Sustained. Sorry, come on up.
Very interesting objection right there at that time. I do believe it would be about medical conditions in prescription drugs, and possibly the peony was in physical inability, taking medication, sleeping during the day. Something of that nature. If I was the defense, I would want Paul's physical capabilities to be put forth to take away from the possibility that he could do the crime.
Based on how well you knew the Caneiro family, was it usual or unusual, either way, for Paul to be sleeping around that time?
It happened periodically. It wasn't a daily thing, but it did happen periodically.
Okay. And do you know why?
Objection.
Don't answer that. Ladies and gentlemen, can you go in the jury room for a second, please?
I do believe the objection is based on this is not an expert witness and she can only attest to what she actually knows as facts or saw. She cannot speculate as to the reason of anything unless she knows. And it's a valid objection. I understand that Monika Mastellone wants to get his physical condition on file. Well, she's going to need his physician to do it.
So for the record, we're outside the presence of the jury. Ma'am, how do you know that he would be sleeping at times during the day?
Susan would tell me.
Right. And as to why he would be sleeping, how would you know that information?
Susan would tell me that he was having a headache.
Okay. All right. So that's all hearsay. I'm not going to allow those questions to be asked. So
No personal knowledge of the situation.
Sidebar, we went back to it again. I'm ordering you not to do that, to go down that line of questioning now that we know for sure. We've heard the answer from the juror. So we will allow the direct to continue. I heard one go into the bathroom, so we'll just check that. As soon as they're not in the bathroom anymore, we'll bring them back out, okay? All right.
Can I just put my position on the record, which is simply that even if it is hearsay, it falls under the exception of state of mind and present medical condition. I understand the court had a prior ruling with respect to the time frame of when Keith was on the phone with Paul that evening. And the court had a concern, I guess, about the issue of reliability. But I think asking this witness generally over time why Mr. Caneiro would be typically sleeping at a certain time during the day, and referencing a medical issue that was the reason, that there is an issue of reliability, because there's no reason for, that's the whole purpose of hearsay, is we don't want to elicit statements out of court that are unreliable, but this would be a reliable statement because we're just talking about generalities and over time, and this is earlier in the day. So I don't, even if it is hearsay, I think it does fall under an exception.
I don't think the exception is strong enough here.
That's of course fair.
All right, Ms. Wallace, do you want to respond?
As a statement submitted is hearsay, that doesn't fall under the state of mind exception because the state of mind would not be relevant to anything. It's squarely hearsay. The defense filed 1,000 motions over the summer that this could have been hashed out then. The state filed motions to bring in certain hearsay that were heard. The state's position is that this does not fall under state of mind evidence.
Well, I'm not going to hold it against the defense for not bringing this out based upon certain case law that exists. However, I do agree that under the state of mind exception to the hearsay rule, I do not find this to be relevant to the circumstances here. I find that whether it's reliable or not, that's not the reason that the court is not going to be allowing this information. It's the question really is for this court is what is the relevance to this information as it relates to this case. I don't find it to, one, be relevant, nor number two, do I find it fits under the exception of the state of mind and or any other hearsay exception. So therefore, I'm not going to allow that question to be asked. And ma'am, I'm going to also order you, now you're hearing me saying what I'm saying, you are not allowed to just elicit or just say that information.
Okay.
All right, because I'm saying right now that that information should not go before the jury, okay?
Yes.
All right, thank you, I appreciate that. So as soon as we have our jurors ready, we'll bring them back out.
Okay. He's sticking with
I
hearsay.
apologize to everyone for the little coughing fit I just had.
Okay, he's sticking with sustaining the objection and saying that they cannot ask that again. So Paul's medical condition, current headaches, and physical ability to pull off the crime is not going to be put forward to the jury with this witness. because all the information she has on it comes from a third party, the wife.
Direct examination, go ahead.
So you were discussing November 19th of 2018, and it was your birthday. Later that night, did you celebrate your birthday?
Yes.
Okay. And then what's the next thing that happened after that?
Katie, Mr. Canero's daughter, called us at shortly after 5 a.m. to tell us that there was a fire at their house and we should get our dogs and get out of the house in case there was a chance of it jumping to our house.
Okay. And did you see the Caneiro family at all that morning?
I did not.
Okay. And what was the reason for that?
We couldn't get to them through the backyard because of all of the fire activity. We couldn't get around on the street side because it was all blocked off.
And did Susan spend the night with you that night?
Yes.
And obviously a lot of time has passed since November of 2018. Are you still close with the Caneiro family?
Yes, very much.
Thank you.
Cross.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Ms. Gould.
Good morning.
Just a couple of questions. You indicated that you would see Mr. Caneiro and interact with his brother and Jennifer and the kids on occasions.
Yes.
And I think you indicated that those would be, maybe you didn't, but what kinds of occasions would those be?
Christmas Eve always, and then if there was a birthday party for one of the girls or a barbecue on the weekend, haphazardly, sometimes a holiday, sometimes just have a barbecue.
Okay, so it was on rare occasions that you would see them interact.
Occasional.
And it would be during happy times, right?
Yes.
Vacations, barbecues, things like that.
Yes. Yes.
Certainly, you didn't know how Keith Caneiro and the defendant interacted with one another when nobody was around. Is that correct?
Correct.
You weren't privy to any of their private communications, right?
Private, no.
Or their interactions over the phone?
Personally, no.
No. You were not present for any of their discussions regarding business, right?
Not that I can recall,
Or
just
any of their disagreements?
casual conversations, but nothing.
You didn't know anything about any financial arrangements that they had, is that correct?
Correct.
You didn't know anything about the defendant's financial situation, is that right?
Yes.
He didn't confide in you about his finances or anything like that? No. And you didn't know about any escalating tensions between Keith and the defendant in 2018, did you?
Go ahead, what's your objection?
She's characterizing it as escalating, and that's argumentative.
Okay, just ask it differently.
Sure. Did you know anything about any tensions between Keith and his brother Paul in 2018?
No.
You weren't aware of any arguments that they may or may not have had, is that right?
Nothing specific, no.
You weren't aware of any frustrations that Keith may have had with his brother Paul, is that correct?
Objection asked and answered as far as she's not aware of any of these private conversations.
I'm going to allow it. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Sure. You weren't aware of any frustrations that Keith may or may not have had with his brother Paul, is that correct?
Correct.
You weren't aware of any future plans that Keith may or may not have communicated to his brother Paul about their businesses, is that correct?
Yes. Correct.
And were you aware of any other financial situations with regard to the defendant being the trustee of an insurance policy?
I do not believe I was aware of that then.
Okay. And is it fair to say you were closer with Susan Caneiro than you were with Paul Caneiro?
We spent more time together, yes.
And in fact, you indicated you saw her on November 19th.
Yes.
You guys had tea together?
Yes.
Did you see the defendant on that date?
I did not.
And certainly you did not see Keith on that date, is that right?
Correct.
And you weren't privy to any phone conversations that the two of them may have had or may not have had, is that correct?
Correct.
You weren't privy to who was angry, is that right?
Objection, again, just this has been established.
I'm going to sustain the objection to the form of that question. So you can ask it differently, but I think that question is improper. Go ahead.
Ma'am, were you aware of any communications that Keith and Paul had on the night of November 19th?
No, I'm not.
So you were not aware of any ultimatums that Keith had given Paul that night?
Yeah, I'm going to sustain the objection. She doesn't know, so she doesn't know. We're going to leave it there.
You indicated that you were close to Susan Caneiro. Were you aware then that she and the defendant slept in separate bedrooms?
Yes,
Were you aware that Susan actually slept in the master bedroom?
yes,
Were you aware that the master bedroom right beneath that is the origin of the fire?
yes.
I have nothing further, Judge.
Any redirect?
The summer of 2018, how often would you see Paul and Susan and their families?
The summer of 18, probably 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay, and how often did you see Keith and Jennifer and their kids?
Over the course of that summer, maybe 3 times.
Okay, and you also, you mentioned holidays, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so you've known the Caneiro family for how long?
Since 1996, so 25 years at the time.
Okay, and obviously you didn't see Keith and Jennifer and their family as often as you saw Paul and Susan's family, right?
Right.
Okay, but did you see them like regularly? How often?
A couple times a year, minimum. 3, maybe 4 times a year.
And that's over the course of 20-something years?
Yes.
And did you ever, even if you weren't present with them, were there occasions where you would just learn things generally, without saying what you learned, just learn things generally about the family?
I don't know what. Come on.
Learn things generally about the family. It sounds like she's trying to dance around hearsay again. And I think the judge is going to pull the legs out from under her again because, wow, that's a little bit shady there, Miss Mastellone. Wow. I think I've heard it now. I mean, that's the most clever way I've heard a defense try to get around hearsay. Well, you just learn things generally, you know? Like, come on. Seriously. The law is not on her side here.
Sustain the objection to that question, but I'm going to allow a new question. Go ahead.
Ms. Gould, did you talk to Susan regularly?
When?
Just generally
Oh,
over the
yes.
course of all the many years you've known
Yes,
her?
absolutely.
And did you also talk to Paul regularly over the course of the many years you've known him?
Less frequently, but regularly, yes.
Regularly.
Yes.
And when you would talk to Susan and Paul, or maybe their children, was a topic of discussion often family?
Periodically. Sure.
And there were obviously a lot of questions about what you don't know, right? Was your relationship with Paul and Susan and their family, was it, and Keith and Jennifer, was it more personal or was it business?
Personal.
And obviously you can only speak to what you know, right?
Yes.
Based on what you do know, did you ever have any concerns about the relationship between Paul and Keith?
Objection.
Sustained. Form that question.
I'll just ask you this one more time. Based on what you do know, how would you describe the closeness of Paul and Keith and their families?
They were very close. Paul loved Keith and Jen and those children.
Thank you.
You can step down, man.
Ooh, dancing around it.
Gentlemen,
Just
we're going to take
dancing
our
around
break
it.
right now. Please don't discuss this case. Do any research. We'll see you back at about 10:25 or so, depending on when you're ready. Thank you.
Okay, well, morning break. And boy, oh boy, I'm sure the jury's ears are perked up now. Starting with character witnesses, bold move by the defense, and I guess it's necessary to reset the jury into looking at Paul Caneiro differently. You know, you hear all the evidence against him, and now She wants to put forward the man, his character, how he couldn't possibly do
See
it.
you back at 10:25.
15-minute break. 10-minute break. Oh. Okay, well, I must say, I'm impressed that Monika Mastellone is getting out what she can. But dancing around that hearsay rule, well, that was pretty risky. She's trying to get in Paul's regular physical state, so to speak, headaches, having a nap, kind of present him as he, couldn't possibly have done this physical crime. In a way, at least that's my impression. I mean, who knows exactly? And obviously not part of the defense team or any legal team whatsoever, But to me, it looked bold. I'm not surprised at the judge's ruling because the hearsay rule is pretty tight. There are exceptions, like she said, for state of mind, but why would the state of mind, this witness is not credible as an expert to do state of mind anyway. She can only testify to what she saw or heard herself. And all the information she has about that comes from the wife. Does this mean that Susan Caneiro will take the stand to try to get this information in? Because it's only the immediate family that will be able to attest to the daily life and physical condition of Paul Caneiro, unless you bring his doctors forward. And that, I didn't see anything of that in any of the pretrial conferences. Well, I mean, it looks like if Monika Mastellone and Andy Murray can't get that in through regular witnesses, that perhaps we will hear from the family.
Cough. No more coughing. You guys can yell at me if I cough again.
We're doing something.
All right. So we're back on the record, and we'll continue with the defense's case. The defense can call their next witness.
Judge, the defense is going to call on Mr. Jim Pritchett.
Okay. Just watch your step as you're coming up here. And then when you get over towards the witness stand, if you could just put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand for me. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, you can take your seat.
Thank you.
Sir. And once you're comfortable, can you tell us your full name and spell your last name, please?
It's James Pritchett. That's P as in Peter, Ritchett.
Okay. Sir, I'm just going to ask you to do me one favor. When you speak, please make sure you speak loud enough so that jurors number 15 and 16 can hear you, okay?
I'll try.
Okay. If not, I'll keep an eye on you, all right?
Thank you.
I got you. All right. Ms. Mastellone, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Pritchett. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, good morning. I'm James Pritchett, but I go by Jim.
And are you currently working?
I'm retired now.
And what did you do before you retired?
Most leading up to retirement, I was in B2B sales for an insurance company, and then before that, I ran a business for Morgan Stanley.
And even though you're retired, do you do any type of work currently?
I volunteer. I volunteer at a local community center. I chair a couple of committees and was on the board for a couple of years. I'm also a what's known as a CASA. It's a court-appointed special advocate for children in the New Jersey foster care system.
And what's your educational background?
I have an undergrad degree in psychology, and I have an MBA in finance and investments.
And who do you live with?
I live with my wife, Stacy.
Okay. I want to first talk to you about the Caneiro family. Do you know Paul Caneiro and his family?
Yes.
And other than Paul, who else is in his immediate family?
There's Sue, or Susan, his wife, and his daughters, Katie and Marissa.
And can you tell us a little bit about how you know them?
Yeah, I met them. I met the entire Caneiro family back in 1993. I started dating my wife, and she's very good friends with Susan. And so I started going to different functions that they were having, like different events. They had a barbecue, I think was the first time. And, started hanging out with them over the summer on a pretty regular basis. And then at the end of 93, I was at their house for Christmas Eve.
Okay, and so 1993, approximately how many years is it that you know them?
Probably it would be about 33 years, sometime in April or May.
Okay. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how well you know the Caneiro family. You kind of started to go into it, but can you explain to us how over time your relationship with Paul and his family developed?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time together. Stacy, my wife, was pretty good friends with Susan, if not best friends. And we would go and hang out with them. We lived in the city, they lived in New Jersey, so it was a good way to escape the city. And we just started talking about things. You know, we had common background. We didn't, kind of blue collar growing up. And so, I grew up in the Bronx. They were from Brooklyn and Staten Island, and we just started hitting it off. So as I started becoming more friendly, it meant that, we were both going out and spending more time with them.
And what about your kids? Were your kids and close with the Caneiro kids?
Yeah, they're like family, I've known Katie since she was, 2 years old maybe. Marissa since the day she was born, and my girls have known them all of their lives. And given the amount of time that we spend with them, it's a family thing, I suppose.
And over time, what are the different types of activities you could tell the jury that, you and Paul and Susan and the girls and your family, what kind of activities and things would you do, kind of get-togethers, things of that nature?
Lots of barbecues over the summer, I guess, as soon as, it starts off with kind of Katie's birthday, because she was end of April, all the way through the end of the summer, just being down, having barbecues. Sue and Paul seem to always love to host, and we were happy to take advantage of that. We were down there so much, probably should have been paying them a rental fee for being there in the summer. Beyond that, birthday parties for all of our kids. We went on vacations together, went to Spain, went to our first trip to Disney with our girls was a joint trip with the families. And Hershey Park is another one where, we've gone multiple times with them. Even actually taking Katie and Marissa at times where Sue and Paul didn't go. So.
And you mentioned earlier that you were living in the city. At some point, did you move to New Jersey? And at some point, did you move to New Jersey?
We did. We moved after 9/11. We moved into town up in Union County.
Is this like 2001?
2001, yeah. Beginning of 2002, by the time we actually got to physically move in.
And once you moved to New Jersey, did you then see the Caneiro family even more often?
Probably every other week, it seemed like, and wasn't so much of an issue in terms of traveling and everything, especially for us back then. Being in the city made it a little bit harder to see them, but then we were able to just kind of jump on the parkway and see them a lot more.
And would you consider yourself and your family close with the Caneiro family?
Yeah, I kind of think of them as an extension of our family. I mean, we have spent so much time with them.
And like, how do you refer to Katie and Marissa?
They're like our nieces in a sense, and I think that our daughters and Katie and Marissa think of themselves almost as cousins because they've spent so much time together. So.
Okay. And so it sounds like you saw them fairly often.
Yes.
During the occasions that you would see them, whether it's barbecue or a holiday, I'm not sure if you mentioned that. Did you spend Christmas with them?
Christmas Eve was kind of a tradition for us, I think, pretty much since 1993.
Did you know the Goulds?
Yes.
Okay. And so in light of the time that you've spent with the Caneiro family, whether it's barbecues, summers, weekends, holidays, did you have the occasion to also get to know Keith and Jennifer and their family?
Yes. When I first met Keith, it was actually at the Christmas Eve thing in '93, the get together. And then eventually once he and Jennifer started dating, I started seeing her more. And then, when Jesse and Sophia were born, we saw them as well because they were over a lot with them too.
Okay. And just to kind of tie it all together, like what kind of events and holidays and get-togethers would you see Jennifer and Keith and the kids?
Well, they were there for the barbecues too. They were there for different birthday parties. We might have been at their houses we had been at their houses for birthday parties for both Jesse and Sophia. They'd be over for Katie and Marissa's. So you would see them with that. Just basically every function that you could think of. I mean, it was kind of a close-knit circle, so, we were always there.
Did you go to their wedding?
We did.
And so based on how well you knew the Caneiro family and how well you knew Paul, how would you describe Paul?
Paul is smart, level-headed, very loyal in a sense, and I guess giving. He was always willing to lend a hand with different things, either sharing an opinion or, hey, and need help doing something. He made himself available.
And how would you describe the relationship between Keith and Paul?
They're brothers, and they were really close. I don't have a brother, but if I did, I would have loved to have had that type of relationship in terms of how close they were.
What about their bond? How would you describe their bond?
They were close, and it was kind of the Caneiro brothers against the world, whether it was just sitting there, talking about something, or having a discussion, or if they were, in business, same sort of thing. Just, them against the world. They were just really close and loyal to one another.
And what about Paul's relationship with Jesse and Sophia? What can you tell us about that?
I know Paul loved both of them. Like having grown up with daughters, Sophia was just, another beautiful little girl. And, he loved Jesse. I thought that he was a calming influence on Jesse. And I don't know, it just seemed like there was a special bond between the two of them. Because he was really the only little boy out of the group, Paul and Susan having girls, myself having girls. He was the only kind of boy in the mix for a while, so.
Thank you. Now, Focusing on a little bit of their business relationship. Are you aware of the two businesses that Paul and Keith own together?
Yes.
And have you ever been to the business's location in Homedale?
Yes, I have.
And what about the one in Asbury?
Yes, I spent time there too.
And you mentioned you spent time there. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I had left Morgan Stanley in 2010. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And Keith and Paul had offered me office space, and while I kind of figured out what I was going to do there. And so I got to spend significant time at both the Homedale office and at the Asbury Park office.
And when you were there, did you have the occasion to interact with Paul and Keith?
Yeah, on a pretty regular basis, I did.
And so how would you describe their business relationship?
It was good. They worked together. They complemented one another in terms of the skill sets. They kind of understood that, again, I guess I said this before, but it was them against the world. They were going to do what they needed to do to figure out how to make the business work best and to be able to succeed.
And how would you describe Paul and Paul's way of communicating?
Paul's always been a bit more measured, level, kind of direct about it. He didn't, he was more reserved, I suppose.
Was he more emotional versus logical?
No, he a lot more logical and even about things.
What about Keith's way of communicating with Paul?
Keith was animated in general. It was just kind of his style where, he would challenge a certain notion or presumption. If they were doing something with the business, he'd want to know, well, can you explain to me how this works or something? And, but it was like almost throwing down a gauntlet for responses to problem solve. So
was his approach more logical or more emotional?
It was more emotional. I mean, again, they were a good compliment from a business perspective on there. Like, he needed to have things proven to him, and he was going to let you. There was no mystery about what Keith was actually thinking from that perspective. It wasn't a negative. It was just different from Paul.
So, and since you've had the occasion to see a lot of their communications when you were present, of course, did you have the occasion to see any disagreements between the two?
Yeah, yes.
And how would you describe those disagreements?
I think that I'd probably describe them as constructive conflict, because Keith would kind of put something out there and, it would be in his animated sort of way with everything on his sleeve, and Paul would sit there and listen to Keith and go through it and then kind of explain, well, here's why these things work over there. So again, kind of a complementary way that they communicated, and once they figured out the issue, it was good. I think it was just an interesting way. It's not as corporate, I would say. Like, having worked in the corporate world, every idea is great, even though it may not be, but every idea is great and everybody's opinion matters. But you don't have that same sort of thing in a smaller business. And I think that they were really effective in that sense.
Okay, and as far as their relationship as business partners, how would you describe their partnership?
They were partners. They were equals, I guess. It was a 50-50 partnership in the sense of how they did the business. Paul might have been maybe a little bit more technical than Keith. but they were equals in the business, and that's the reason for a lot of the discussions that they had.
And to your knowledge, like, did one brother contribute more than the other? Because you're talking about equals and notwithstanding ownership specifically, but more so just like in the way that they handled the business day to day and the activities.
Jack, close to yours.
Fair objection there by the state in regards to what he could know about the business structure, actually, from just casual conversation with a friend and etc. That's a pretty dicey area because defense wants, certain relationship of Keith and Paul to be known and how they work together and everything. But then when pressed by cross as to if they knew of any distension or any phone calls or anything like that, which the jury has already heard and seen the emails and heard testimony and actually heard the phone calls themselves and saw the emails themselves. It's like a double-edged sword, but I do think that the defense has a good strategy here, bringing forth character witnesses first to reset the jury. I think that's a very good strategy indeed.
We're going to just ask a different question. All right.
When you were at the, this was like around 2010, 2011 or so?
Yes.
And so when you were at the, and I think you mentioned you were renting office space or using office space.
I was using it, yeah.
Did you ever engage with Paul and Keith and discuss the businesses with them?
Yes.
And without saying like what was said, can you just talk generally about, just like the types of things that you guys would discuss with respect to the businesses?
I was getting ready to say typical, but discussions about whether or not how you finance certain things. Do you buy? Do you lease? How do you interface with the media on certain things for a business? What your approach would be to doing that. So like public relations type things. Just different issues where there's like two different viewpoints, but specifically, finance, marketing.
And so were you like sitting with them in the
Yes.
room having discussions?
Yes.
And were they asking for your opinion? Were you consulting with them?
They asked me what I thought, given some of the experience I had out in the business world. Could be like, hey, is it better to just own something outright, or are we better off leasing and financing something? Or, as I was saying before, the issue of how do you interface with the media on certain things without getting too into detail. There was an issue of bed bugs, and there were different interviews going on, as an example of something.
You're talking about the pest control business?
Yes.
Okay. Now, so just based on like your observations during this time where you're watching the brothers communicate and watching them discuss the businesses, did it seem like they were taking like equal part in the conversation?
Yes, they did.
Okay. And based on what you were able to observe from the day-to-day while you were there, was it your impression that the brothers were working together? Was one brother doing more than the other, or were they doing
Jackson,
it?
Judge, the same question from before, and I don't know what time we're talking about.
And it's leading. So I'll allow you to ask a different question, but Mr. Decker is correct. Are we talking about 2010 and 11? I'm not really sure.
Right, during the time that you were there, at that time, and you were sitting with them and talking with them, the question is just how did you observe them as business partners as far as being equals?
Well, when there were issues that needed to be resolved, they relied on one another. They sat down and talked about how they should approach something. So just in that sense, it appeared to me that they were equals because they didn't make a significant decision without consulting with the other.
And based on your understanding, like what were the roles within the business?
Paul was, in my estimation, like he would have been like a COO or something, understood how the business worked, what the administrative ends of the business were, as well as some of the technical stuff.
And I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. Okay. So when Keith went back to school, how did Paul handle that situation?
He was good with it. I mean, it meant that he was doing a little bit more of the day-to-day because Keith was in school with class, but he seemed to be fine with it. I think he was happy for his brother for Keith because it was important for Keith to go to school, and he was going to Columbia, and so there was a lot of prestige with that. And Keith felt good about himself doing it. So, and I think Paul felt good for Keith at that point.
And so was Paul supportive?
Absolutely.
Fast forwarding a little bit more, after 2018, do you know who took over the businesses?
Objection. Relevance.
Can I see the attorneys? 2018 is a pretty long amount of time.
Another sidebar for objection, and let's see where this one goes. Jury coming back in, and looks like we're going to start again with the rec of Mr. Pritchett.
Ms. Mastellone, when you're ready.
Mr. Pritchett, just a few more questions. So I think the question we left off was after November 20th of 2018, who took over Keith and Paul's businesses?
Corey Caneiro did.
And how do you, how soon after November 20th of 2018 did that happen?
Within days.
Now, obviously, a lot of time has passed since 2018. Are you still close with the Caneiro family today?
I am.
Thank you.
Cross.
Thank you. Pritchett, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Just want to ask you, those questions you were just asked. I mean, somebody had to take over the businesses, right? To make sure that people got paid and customers got serviced, correct?
Yes.
Correct. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you talked about couple of times you talk about how Keith and Paul were partners, right?
Yes,
They were partners in Square One, right?
yes,
And also in EcoStar, right?
yes.
And you also referenced when you said partners, you said 50-50, right?
Yeah, in terms of being equals, I don't know if there was partnership mix or anything like that. I just know that they behaved as equals.
Okay. They behaved as equals, correct? Are you saying you don't know who owned what with, let's just say Square One in particular? Who owned what percentage?
No,
You don't know?
I don't.
Okay. And EcoStar, you don't know either?
No.
Now, you were talking about the Homedale office, Square One, right? That was a while ago, right?
They were there in 2010.
Yeah, 2010. And then they moved to the Asbury Park office later, correct?
Yes,
So were you saying that you were using an office in just Asbury Park or in both?
actually in both.
Okay. What year did you retire?
Officially last year in 2025.
Now, you were asking questions about Paul being very level-headed, right?
Yes,
You said that, right? And you said Keith was more emotional, right?
yes,
Kind of always knew what he was thinking based upon the way he interacted, correct?
yes,
You said something about like he wore his emotions on his sleeve, right?
yes.
Okay, did you ever, did you ever have the opportunity to view text messages or chats between Keith and Paul?
No,
Okay, you didn't read their messages, right?
no,
You didn't read the emails from Keith to Paul and Paul to Keith, right?
that's correct.
Okay. And you weren't privy to their phone calls, right?
No,
Each other.
no,
Okay, like you weren't overhearing Keith call Paul or Paul call Keith, right?
I might have, but nothing specific.
You described Mr. Paul Caneiro, as being loyal, correct?
Yes,
You also said at times he was always giving, right?
yes,
Okay. Is it fair to say that you're not aware of any times that he was actually taking?
Objection.
I'm going to allow it.
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
Were you ever made aware of times when Paul Caneiro was taking financially from Keith Caneiro?
Objection.
I'm going to allow it.
No,
You said no?
I said no. I'm sorry.
I honestly, I just wasn't sure.
Somebody coughed. And it wasn't me this time.
Judge, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Can you redirect?
Judge, can we approach?
Sure you can.
Monika Mastellone asking to approach before she does a redirect. And I'm thinking because she wants to get more involved into the business questions that she's had a little trouble with.
Mr. Pritchett, the prosecutor asked you, whether someone had to take over the businesses, right? But it didn't have to be Corey, right? It could have been someone else.
Yes, in all honesty, I was a little bit surprised.
Sir, that's the answer to the question. It's either yes or no. Somebody else could have taken it over?
Yes,
Okay. I'm going to strike the part after the word yes, it could have been somebody else.
And to your knowledge, over the course of let's say, starting in the 2000s, from 2000 up until 2018, like those 18 years, did Corey have anything to do with the business?
no. Corey had been brought in a couple of times, I know, by Keith and Paul into the business, but it didn't really work out, and they wind up having to let him go from that.
And was this prior to 2000?
Probably late 90s and then maybe early 2000s. I tried to cut. There's a couple of instances.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
No, Judge, thank you.
All right, sir, you can step down. Thank you. We appreciate your time. Ms. Mastellone, when you're ready.
Thank you, Judge. The defense is going to call Stacy Pritchett.
Ma'am, just watch your step. If there's a step up to the witness box, if you don't mind, please. Thank you. If you don't mind, before you sit down, could you put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, once you're comfortable and seated, can you state your full name for the record and spell your last name, please?
Sure. My name is Stacy Pritchett. It's Pritchett.
Ma'am, I'm just going to ask you to speak up so jurors number 15 and 16 can hear you, okay?
Of course,
All right,
yes.
thank you so much. Ms. Mastellone, when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Pritchett.
Good morning.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, my name is Stacy Pritchett. Should I spell it again?
No, you're good.
What's your current occupation?
I work in marketing.
And what's your educational background?
I have a BA in literature from SUNY Binghamton and an MBA in marketing from Brook College.
And are you married to Jim Pritchett, who we just heard from?
Yes, I am.
So obviously we just heard from your husband, so we already have some background. But can you just explain a little bit to the jury about how you met Susan and then Paul?
Absolutely. I met Susan when I was a sophomore in high school. So about 43 years ago. We went to high school together. We had a lot of classes and we just became friends. We did a project together and we just really hit it off. We were very close in high school. I went away to college and I would write letters and we kept in touch. And then after college, when I moved back home, we rekindled our friendship and I would consider her my best friend. More like a sister, and Paul more like my brother-in-law. I've known him about 42 years, and I consider them like family. I consider Katie and Marissa like my nieces, and my kids introduce them as their cousins.
Okay, so just to back up for a moment, you mentioned you met Susan in high school,
I did.
right?
Yes.
And you were around how old at that time?
I was about 15 years old when I met Sue.
And what about when you met Paul? How old were you then?
16 or 17, in that range. So about a year after I met Sue, I had met Paul.
So
They
still
had
in
started
high school?
dating, still in high school. Yes.
And again, we heard from your husband, but can you just explain a little bit more about your relationship with the Caneiro family? I know you just explained that you consider them like family, but how did your relationship develop over the years with the families as far as like things you did together and events and activities and things of that nature?
We became like family. Sue, like I said, is more like my sister than my best friend, and Paul, my brother-in-law, the girls like my nieces. We went on family vacations. We went to Disney World. We went to Hershey Park like once a summer. We spent every Christmas Eve together. And during the summer, we were there like every other weekend. I used to joke that it was my shore house. But we spent a lot of time together as families.
And during the summer, we've heard a lot about these barbecues. Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that?
So we would go, once they put in their pool, we were there regularly. We would go every other weekend. Paul is a fabulous cook. He would barbecue. He'd make the best steak that is still talked about in my house. And he would cook and the kids would swim. We would all swim. They'd play on the trampoline. They'd play with each other. And we'd just hang out. We spent a lot of time with them in the summer.
So based on how well you knew Paul, how would you describe him?
I would say that Paul is highly intelligent, loyal, very helpful, dependable, very logical, and very even-tempered.
And did you say he was?
He's very helpful. He was always helpful to me personally, to us as a family. He was always there if I needed advice. He helped us with when personal computers became a thing. It was Paul who set us up. He set up my computer. He set up my mother's computer. Whenever I had an IT question or a technical question, I would ask Paul. He really was my go-to person for anything technical. He advised me on what tires to buy. And then when Jim and I moved to New Jersey and we bought our house, things were broken and he came over with his drill. He fixed our cabinet. He fixed other things around the house. One time when my husband was traveling and my kids were very, very little, our boiler broke. And I called Sue and I spoke to Paul and he told me what to do. I called a repair person and then he stayed on the line with me the entire time that the repair person was there. So he was always very, very helpful.
And as a result of how well you knew Susan and Paul and their family and how often you saw them, I think you said like every other weekend.
Yes.
A lot during the summer. Did you have the occasion to see Keith and Jennifer and their family?
Yes. We saw them every Christmas Eve because they would come every Christmas Eve and we'd all exchange gifts and we'd see them a lot during the summer. So they wanted to swim in the pool and eat Paul's cooking and play and hang out. So we spent a lot of time with Keith and Jen and the kids every summer, a lot of time.
And so based on what you were able to observe with the interactions with the family, can you tell us about Paul's relationship with Keith?
Yes. So in the 40 or so years approximate 40 years that I knew Keith and Paul, I observed them often and they had a very loving relationship. Paul loved Keith very much. He would call him his person, his best friend. He was always there for Keith. He was they were best friends and business partners, and he was very protective of Keith, and he loved him very, very much.
And did you ever have the opportunity to see them disagree or argue?
Yes, I mean, they were brothers, so of course they disagreed. Yes, they would disagree. They would discuss things, get their feelings out there. I actually admired their relationship because they could disagree and then go back to being best friends, going to lunch. So they would disagree. Usually it was Keith who would lose his temper. Paul was always the more even one, the fixer. Keeping calm, and they would disagree and then they would resolve it and move on and go out to lunch and just resume the relationship like nothing ever happened.
And what about Paul's relationship with Jesse and Sophia? What can you tell us about that?
I can tell you that he loved them very, very much. I would say that Jesse was the son he didn't have. He loved Jesse, he loved Sophia. He absolutely adored those kids. I know when Jesse was in preschool or kindergarten, he was allowed to bring an adult to school with him, and he chose his Uncle Paul. I mean, that was how much Jesse loved Paul, and it was absolutely reciprocated. He absolutely loved Jesse. He absolutely loved Sophia. He loved those kids.
Focusing on the businesses for a moment. To your knowledge, again, just based on your experience knowing them and what your personal observations were, and getting to know Paul, getting to know Keith over the 40-something years, were you privy to like when the businesses started and as they progressed and things of that nature?
I was privy to some of it, absolutely. I know Keith started the business and then he brought Paul on, and Paul was the one who really grew the business. He went out and he got clients. He was very instrumental in building the business. I know they worked very well together. They were very compatible. I think Keith was more strategic and Paul was more like tactical, more hands-on. He was always there building the business, and they worked very, very well together.
Now, obviously, again, a lot of time has passed since November of 2018. Are you still close to the Caneiro family?
Absolutely. They are our family and they always will be.
Thank you.
Cross?
Thank you. Good morning, man.
Good morning.
You said Keith would always lose his temper.
Not always. He was the first one to usually get agitated and start yelling.
Okay. Paul was very level-headed, right?
Yes.
Now, I assume you'll agree with me that you didn't hear Keith lose his temper on a phone call with Paul on November 19th,
No, I did
2018. Never heard that, correct?
No, I did not.
You also said that Keith started the business, right?
Correct.
You said that Paul then had a lot to do with growing the business, right?
Yes.
I'm sure that's fair. But were you aware of the ownership structure of, when I say the business, let's say Square One, did you know who owned what?
I had an idea.
And what was the idea?
I think, mostly Keith's, and Paul was part of it as well. But the majority was Keith's.
I have nothing further, Judge.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
You can step down, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Spence, call our next witness.
Judge, that's all we have for today.
Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, get to go home. So,
Wow.
That'll end us for today. We'll be back again here on Monday morning, first thing, just like we are. I'll have you here at 8 o'clock. We'll have you up by 8:30. We'll continue on. There's things that the attorneys and myself have to do outside of your presence. So we'll be doing that. So it's not like the case is not doing something during this time frame, but I'm going to send you guys home. So I hope you have a great weekend. I hope it doesn't snow. And I don't discuss this case and don't do any research. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, jury excused for the day. So the defense only brought forward character witnesses today, two couples close to Paul and Susan Caneiro that have known them for long periods of time, very long periods of time. A good strategy on their part to reset the jury into thinking of Paul Caneiro on a human level, as a man with relationships and history, and to try to bring his character forward and not just the incidents around the dates of the event, but put some context and history to it. And it also subtly reinforces the defense's notion that law enforcement really focused in on Paul only and led a pretty well shoddy investigation by not asking questions. They did not interview neighbors or anything about Paul Caneiro in general or how he was or anything else. And that is basically a light that the defense is trying to shine on this, but it does nothing to the physical evidence, nothing at all. And, that could be an area of concern. Does it put a little doubt? Yes, it does. It makes you think twice. You have to remember he's a human being. You remember, the possibility that he could or couldn't. The physical evidence, though, in this case is really hard to ignore, regardless of how the neighbors felt about him, regardless of whether law enforcement sat with the neighbors for hours and asked about Paul's daily life. Physical evidence alone would mean that was unnecessary. And the physical evidence from the beginning was pretty damning. So we shall see. We shall see. let's see what's going to happen for the rest of the day after they do this sidebar. Once this sidebar is open, I'm sure the judge will let us know what's going on for the afternoon, whether we are off camera or if they'll be doing charging instructions in the jury verdict slip and all of that. Also, evidence. They have to get the evidence that's going to go, that's actually compiled for the jury. What's in and what's out. That list has to be compared also. So let's see what is on the plate. I would imagine all of that's going to be on the plate for this afternoon, especially now that we're in the defense's case. I don't see the defense needing more than one more day, perhaps two, and then we've got rebuttal. I don't know what the prosecution may have in store for rebuttal with the character witnesses, but we shall see. We shall see. I do see that, they did have to bring Corey into it again, but I really don't know if that's going to hit really hard with the jury. I mean, Corey was questioned and has a solid alibi and was eliminated. And whether or not he's running the businesses and or received his share, yes, that's some financial impact to his life, but it doesn't mean he did anything, because there's absolutely no physical evidence against Corey Caneiro. I'm afraid the same can't be said.
Ladies and gentlemen, so that the record is clear, what our plan is that the attorneys and the court, we're going to go through all of the exhibits after lunch to discuss what items that are allowed in or not, so that you're aware. Just because something has been marked as an exhibit doesn't mean that the jury necessarily gets it. We wait until the court makes a determination whether it's going to be allowed in. So that's what's going to happen this afternoon. And we're also going to go over the jury charge again in anticipation of summations next week at some point. So with that being said, that'll be at 1:30. It's an open courtroom. If you want to be here, you can be here. If not, that there will be no testimony this afternoon. It will just be going through the physical evidence and also going through the jury charge. All right. Just want everybody to know that. All right. I'll see everyone back here at 1:30.
Nah, just for the record.
Okay. So that concludes testimony for the day and the morning session of court. They're coming back at 1:30, and it'll be like a conference with the attorneys. And apparently it will be open courtroom, and that sounds like live camera to me. So we will be covering that part of it so that we know what's going on with the case. But for now, we're going to end this here. I don't know if that means we'll be going live early today with Trial TV Live for our weekly recap, week 4 with Chris, the squeegee of justice. I'm really looking forward to that. But it does seem that if the courtroom is open, that we will, of course, still be going closer to 5:15. But, we'll see. I hope that you'll join us there and catch that on replay if you can't catch it live. But again, meet me in the comments. What do you think of the defense's strategy? How do you feel these witnesses presented themselves as character witnesses for Paul Caneiro? How do you feel it is affecting the jury? And what do you think about the Juror 9 issue from earlier in the morning? First thing. Anyway, meet me in the comments. Can't wait to hear from you. On that, let's end it for the morning.